At Christmas, my dad humiliated me for climbing poles instead of having a real career. I took back his dream car, cut contact, and chose peace over his control. Hey, I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these, but here we are. A year ago, I cut contact with my father after one final public mess that honestly changed everything for me. I used to think family meant unconditional loyalty, no matter how much respect you lost in the process. Turns out some people only see family as another word for ownership. Anyway, this story isn't about revenge or hate. It's about what finally pushed me to walk away and how I learned peace can be louder than words. People think line work is all about climbing poles and fixing wires. It's not. It's about keeping power flowing when everyone else is home warm and comfortable. Storms, blackouts, lightning, we're the ones out there. That's what I do. And yeah, it's dangerous. It's hard, but I love it. I've been doing it for almost 10 years, and every time I see the lights flicker back on after a long outage, I feel like I actually built something that matters. My dad never saw it that way, though. He used to joke that I worked with big boy Legos. He'd say real success wears a tie, Ryan, while sipping his black coffee like he was dropping life wisdom. He's a retired accountant, the type who still reads the Wall Street Journal in print and thinks a man's worth is tied to how many meetings he sits in. My sister, Erin. Yeah, she's the favorite. She runs a fitness account online, posts gym selfies with motivational captions like rise and grind, and dad treats her like she discovered fire. She's a real entrepreneur, he says. Sure, dad. Posting squats for brand deals is definitely Wall Street level stuff. 2 years ago, after yet another "when are you going to get a real job" speech, I made myself a promise. I was done trying to explain my career. I'd show him instead. Every time I wanted to quit, I remembered his voice. You'll burn out before you ever get ahead. And the plan hit me one night when I saw an old listing online, a 1968 Mustang Fastback. His dream car since I was a kid. He used to talk about it like it was a first love. Cherry red, manual, black stripes, he'd say, but he never got close to owning one. Too expensive, too impractical. I tracked down one that needed restoring and made it my side project for a year. Parts, paint, late nights in my buddy's garage. Every bolt tightened by hand. It was perfect. Christmas morning came faster than I thought. I parked the car outside my parents' place, covered with a tarp and a red bow. The house was packed. Cousins, neighbors, Erin already live-streaming her arrival like it was a red carpet event. I carried myself the same way I always did. Calm, casual, no big show. Dad was holding court in the living room, bragging about how Erin got invited to some wellness expo. I waited for a lull, then said, "Hey, Dad, come outside for a second." Everyone followed. He saw the car, froze, then looked at me. "Is this a joke?" he asked. "Nope," I said. "It's yours. Merry Christmas." He walked around it slowly, touching the door, checking the paint. "A 68 Fastback," he said quietly, almost like he didn't believe it. For 1 second, I thought I actually did it, that maybe finally he'd be proud. Then he turned to the crowd, smirked, and said, "Guess my boy's trying to buy my approval. Didn't think climbing poles paid this well." The laughter hit harder than I expected, loud, unfiltered, like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. Erin giggled like a toddler. Someone's uncle clapped, and my dad just stood there grinning, the star of his own little comedy hour. I smiled too, not because it was funny, but because I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of seeing me angry. I just said, yeah, I got to keep the lights on somehow, and walked back inside. The rest of the night was a blur of fake cheer. Erin posed by the tree. Dad bragged about his joke, and I sat quietly near the back, checking the time every few minutes. When dessert came out, I stood up and said I had an early shift the next morning. He laughed again. "Of course. Can't keep the city running without you, huh?" Outside, it was cold enough to see my breath. I stood next to my truck, watching the lights from the house flicker through the curtains. The Mustang sat in the driveway, perfect, gleaming, like it didn't belong there. I wanted that moment, the respect, the nod, something. But deep down, I knew better. Driving home, I didn't feel sad. Just done. Years of comments, eye rolls, and just jokes all added up to one thing. No matter how much I achieved, it would never be enough for him. He'd never see me as anything more than the kid who picked the wrong path. I parked in my driveway, sat there for a bit, and stared at my hands. The same hands that fixed power lines through storms, rebuilt that car from rust, and somehow still weren't good enough. Then I laughed. Not bitter, just tired. "Happy Christmas, old man," I muttered. Because that was the moment it hit me. I didn't need him to be proud. I'd already made it. He just couldn't stand that I did it without asking for his permission. That line kept looping in my head while I brushed my teeth the next morning. I could still hear his stupid laugh from last night, the guess my boys trying to buy my approval thing replayed like a bad song I couldn't turn off. Then it hit me. The title and registration were still under my name. I stood in the kitchen sipping cold coffee, staring out the window like a man about to do something stupid but peaceful. I wasn't even mad anymore, just done. That car didn't belong there, not in that driveway, not with him. By 6 a.m., I took an Uber back. The neighborhood looked frozen, Christmas lights still on, lawns frosted over, a few trash bins tipped from the wind. I dropped off a block away, walked the rest of the distance like I was on some secret mission. The Mustang sat there shining under a thin layer of ice. The red bow had drooped from the dew, hanging like it was embarrassed to still be there. I unlocked the door, slid into the driver's seat, and for a second, I almost laughed. I still had the key. The key turned smooth. I rolled it out of the driveway slow, careful not to wake anyone. The reflection of the porch lights followed me down the street like the car was finally leaving the wrong home. When I got back to my place, I parked it in my garage, turned off the engine, and sat there with my hands on the wheel. For the first time in days, I felt calm, like I'd just unplugged something that had been draining me for years. I took a long shower, made breakfast, and turned my phone face down. I didn't even check it until noon. By then, it looked like my notifications had multiplied in the dark. 23 missed calls, 12 texts, 3 voicemails. Aaron's message popped up first. "Did you seriously take back Dad's present? You're ruining Christmas. Everyone's talking about it. Grow up." Right below that, one from my dad. "People laughed because it was funny. Learn to take a joke." Then another one a few minutes later. "You're embarrassing yourself now. No thank you. No, why'd you take it back? Just pure entitlement, like the car was his birthright." I put my phone down and went to the garage. The Mustang gleamed under the light, engine still warm from the drive earlier. I walked around it slow, hands in my pockets. I thought about every single time he'd run his mouth about my job, blue-collar, muscle kid who works with tools because he couldn't handle math. Maybe if you studied harder, you wouldn't have to hang off poles for a living. He said it all like it was helpful advice, like tearing me down was his version of motivation. I used to laugh it off, tell myself he just didn't understand what I did, but deep down, I think he did. He just hated that I didn't need his approval to be proud of it. I wiped my hands on a rag and opened my laptop. Pulled up a classic car listing site. 1968 Mustang Fastback, restored, original V8 engine, new paint. I took a few photos right there in the garage, front angle, engine bay, interior, posted it with a short note, serious buyers only, title in hand. I wasn't keeping something that reminded me of him. It didn't even feel like my work anymore. It was a monument to a guy who'd never say good job without turning it into a dig. I wanted to sell it and treat myself with something that had nothing to do with him. Around 3 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. I played it on speaker while tightening a light fixture in the kitchen. "Ryan, what the hell is wrong with you?" he said, voice all shaky, fake anger. "You took the car back. You think that makes you look strong? People saw you do that. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed this family. You think you can just take back a gift like some spoiled kid?" I laughed out loud. Spoiled kid. From the guy who spent Christmas morning roasting his son for sport. I texted him back 3 words, "Title's in my name." He didn't reply after that, but Erin did. "Of course she did. You're acting insane. Dad's really upset. He didn't mean anything by the joke. Why can't you just let stuff go?" Because I'd been letting stuff go for 30 years, that's why. Every insult, every jab disguised as just teasing. You don't realize how much you've swallowed until you stop. That evening, I stood in the garage again, staring at the car. Someone had already messaged me about it, offering to come by and see it that weekend. I accepted. When I shut the garage lights off, I caught a glimpse of myself in the side mirror. I looked different, not in some dramatic movie way, just steadier, clearer. That night, lying in bed, I realized something simple. I'd spent years trying to prove to him that I made it, but I didn't need to prove it anymore. The guy who thought success came with a tie and a title could keep his empty house and his fake pride. Me? I had peace and a car to sell. That weekend, a buyer came by. Older guy, probably late 40s, knew what he was looking at. He didn't even haggle, just walked around the Mustang, nodded once and said, "Someone really took their time with this." "Yeah," I said, handing him the keys. "Someone did." By Monday morning, the car was gone. The garage was empty, and I felt lighter. I figured my dad would blow up again once he noticed it was listed online, so before he could start his next meltdown, I decided to cut the cord for good. I opened my phone, scrolled through my contacts until I found Lacey, his wife, my stepmom. She's the only one in that house who's ever treated me like an actual human being. She didn't always take sides, but she also never pretended the guy was easy to live with. My text was short, maybe 4 lines. Hey Lacey, I just wanted to say I'm stepping back from all this. I'm done with family holidays, done with fixing things, done trying to make peace when it's one-sided. I wish you the best. I stared at the screen for a second before hitting send. No essays, no explanations, just truth. Her reply came 10 minutes later. You've done enough, Ryan. Don't feel guilty. You deserve peace. Simple, honest. Probably the nicest thing anyone from that side of the family ever said to me. After that, I figured I'd get ahead of the noise. My mom lived in Arizona, remarried once, divorced again, teaches sewing classes out of her garage now. We talk sometimes, mostly small stuff, weather, work, that sort of thing. But this time, I called her for real. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, stranger, she said. Hey, Mom. I did something. That sounds like something you usually say before bad news, she joked. I told her about the Christmas mess, the Mustang, the joke, everything. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was silence. Then she said, Good. Good? I asked. That's not the part where you tell me to make peace. She laughed softly. Ryan, I was wondering when you'd finally stop trying to fix him. It's about time. That threw me off. My mom isn't the emotional type, never was. But she sounded calm, relieved even. Then she said something I didn't expect. You know why I left him, right? She asked. I figured it was the arguing, I said. She sighed. It was the control. Everything had to be his way or it didn't count. I loved sewing. I used to sell my work at fairs. He made me quit, said it wasn't respectable enough for an accountant's wife. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the wall. I could almost picture him saying it. Same smug tone he used when he told me climbing poles wasn't a real job. She continued, He doesn't love people, Ryan. He audits them, measures their worth like balance sheets. You could give him the world and he'd still find an error somewhere. That line stuck with me. He audits them. That's exactly what he did. Every conversation was a calculation. How much he could criticize, how much control he still had. I told her, I think I finally got tired of being one of his bad investments. She chuckled. You're the only investment that actually paid off. He just doesn't like the return coming in without his name on it. We talked for another hour. She sounded happy, free. I hadn't heard that in years. When we hung up, I realized she wasn't shocked at all. She'd been waiting for this moment quietly, hoping I'd figure it out. After that call, I sat on the couch for a while, scrolling through old texts from my dad and Aaron, messages that look normal until you actually read them. Little digs dressed up as conversation. Dad sent me once, any chance you'll move up to management, or are you more of a hands-on forever type? It all read like the same script, me proving, them minimizing. I was tired of it. So I did what I should have done years ago. I opened my contacts, hit block on both their numbers, then scrolled through social media and deleted them from every platform. No announcement, no post about cutting off toxicity, none of that attention-seeking stuff, just quiet deletion. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number, probably my dad using a different phone to get around the block. I didn't answer. I just watched it ring until it stopped. Later, I sat out on the porch with a cold soda, scrolling through a few job listings in Arizona just for curiosity. Not because I needed to move, but because I could, because I didn't owe anyone an explanation anymore. It was strange how light everything felt, like my life had been filled with background noise for so long I forgot what quiet sounded like. Before heading in, I sent one last text to Lacey. Not my dad. Just so you know, I blocked him and Aaron. I'm done. I appreciate you always being decent. She replied a minute later, I understand. You're doing the right thing. I smiled, put the phone down, and locked the door. For the first time in years, there was no weight sitting on my chest. Sometimes walking away isn't disrespect, it's self-respect. I should have known my dad wouldn't let that be the end of it. About a week after blocking him, I was at work climbing down from a transformer pole when I noticed a text from a coworker. Nate, bro, everything good with you? I texted back, yeah. Why? He sent a screenshot. It was an email chain between him, another lineman, and our foreman. The email was from my dad. Subject line, concern for my son. He wrote, Ryan's been acting unstable lately. He's isolated himself from family, made erratic financial decisions, and may be struggling mentally. I'm worried he might do something reckless. please keep an eye on him. My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. I could almost hear his tone, calm, concerned, perfectly phrased to make me look like a problem. I called Nate. You didn't believe that crap, right? Of course not, man, he said. But dude, that's messed up. Who does that to their own kid? Someone who treats people like projects, I muttered. By the end of the day, 2 more CO workers messaged me. Same story. My dad had reached out to people he didn't even know personally. Managers, union reps, anyone connected to me, all under the banner of concern. It wasn't concern, it was sabotage. The old man didn't like that I stopped playing by his script, so he decided to write a new one, starring me as the unstable son. So I called my buddy Mark, one of the union lawyers I'd worked with during a safety dispute years ago. Guy's sharp, no nonsense. He picked up mid-bite of something crunchy. Ryan, my man, what's up? I explained everything, the emails, the rumors, the fake concern. He didn't even sound surprised. Classic image management, he said. He's building a narrative, so if you ever call him out publicly, people think you're the crazy one. Can I shut it down? I asked. Oh, absolutely. You want me to handle it? Please. He sent me a draft within the hour, short, professional, and lethal. A formal cease and desist letter addressed to my dad, citing defamation and harassment, giving him 48 hours to stop contacting anyone associated with me. I approved it instantly. 2 days later, Mark texted me a screenshot of the delivery confirmation. He got it. I expected silence. What I got instead was a storm. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened later, it was my dad's voice. Shaky, theatrical, full of forced outrage. So this is how you treat your father? You send lawyers after family? You think that makes you a man? You've humiliated me again, Ryan. Do you even care what this does to our name? Our name? Like he was running a corporation, not a family. I deleted it without replying, not even worth my breath. The next day, Erin called from her other phone. I didn't pick up. She texted instead. Dad says you sent legal threats. What's wrong with you? He's heartbroken. You're being cruel. I typed back. Tell him to stop contacting my KEO workers and I'll stop defending myself. She read it but didn't answer. Typical Erin. Defend him first. Think later. For about a week, things were quiet. Then I opened Facebook during lunch one day and almost spit out my sandwich. There it was, a photo of my dad lying in a hospital bed wearing one of those patient gowns, oxygen tube under his nose. The caption read, "Stress can really hurt the heart when your own blood turns on you. Appreciate your family while you still can." I just stared at it. No words. Within minutes, the post was swarmed with comments. Old family, friends, church people, KEO workers from his accounting days, all of them rushing in with sympathy. Stay strong, Mr. Thompson. You raised a good son. He'll come around. Kids today don't understand loyalty. And of course, Erin chimed in with a heart emoji and love you, Dad. It was like watching a live performance of the Martyr Chronicles, featuring Dad as the victim. I didn't comment, didn't message, didn't defend myself. I just closed the app and went back to work. That night, though, I kept thinking about how he'd pulled it off so easily. He wasn't even sick, just bored and hungry for attention. I knew him too well. The man could turn a paper cut into a war story if it meant people would clap for him. The next morning, my foreman Tom pulled me aside at the yard. Hey, just checking in. Everything okay with you? I smirked. Let me guess. You saw Facebook? He nodded awkwardly. Yeah. Didn't know what to believe, but figured I'd ask straight up. I'm fine, I said. He's not. He's just addicted to pretending he is. Tom chuckled and shook his head. Family, huh? Something like that, I said. After work, I went home and sat in my truck for a minute before heading inside. The sky was gray, quiet. It hit me then. He didn't want peace. He wanted an audience. Every move he made was about control, about twisting reality until he looked noble and I looked broken. He wasn't sick, just addicted to control. I wondered if cutting him off had been too harsh. I used to second-guess myself all the time, not anymore. One afternoon, while fixing a breaker in my garage, I got a call from a storm response company in Arizona. Big job, 3-month contract, good pay. They needed line workers to help rebuild infrastructure after monsoon damage. I didn't even hesitate. The universe had handed me a reason to get out. That same night, I put my apartment up for rent, cleaned out the garage, boxed up the few things I actually cared about, my tools, some photos, and a worn leather jacket my mom gave me years ago. Everything else could stay. I wasn't running away. I was just done standing still. By the next month, I was in Arizona. My mom lived a few towns over in a single-story house surrounded by dry hills and cactus fields. When I pulled into her driveway, she came out wiping her hands on a sewing apron. Same calm face as always. "You're really here," she said, smiling. "Yeah," I said. "Figured I'd see what peace looks like." She hugged me quick, like she wasn't sure how to do it anymore, then waved toward the house. "I made lasagna. Don't ask if it's healthy." The first week felt strange. No calls from work emergencies, no sarcastic texts from Aaron, no tension hanging in the background, just open sky, long drives, and quiet nights. I picked up a small place near my mom's. Nothing fancy, single bedroom, tiny yard, and a view of power lines cutting through the desert horizon. Fitting, really. Days were spent working the storm contract. Hard labor, long hours, the kind of job that made you fall asleep the second you sat down. I loved it. It felt honest. Every bolt I tightened, every line I reset reminded me that I built my own life, no help from anyone. Weekends were slower. I'd help neighbors fix porch lights, patch fences, small things like that. Word got around that the new guy in the blue truck could fix anything, so folks would drop by with small jobs and coffee as payment. I didn't mind. It was peaceful work, no drama, no expectations. Then one Thursday night, I got a text from Lacey. I hadn't heard from her in months. "Hey Ryan, just a heads up. Your dad tried to use that old emergency credit card you gave him years ago. It got declined." I froze mid-bite. I'd completely forgotten that card existed. It was something I'd set up years ago when he had surgery. I texted back, "How do you know?" He came home furious. Said the card kept getting declined 3 times in one day. Groceries, gas, something at Home Depot. I checked my account that night just to verify, and the activity log showed all 3 failed attempts. The next morning, I called the bank and canceled the card, then asked them to close the entire account so there were no leftovers. The rep asked if I wanted a replacement. "No," I said. "I'm done lending out lifelines." It felt symbolic, ending that one last connection. That card had been a silent chain, one he could tug on whenever he wanted. Now it was gone. Later that night, I told my mom about it over dinner. She didn't seem surprised. "He never wanted help," she said, setting down her fork. "He wanted control. There's a difference." She was right. He didn't miss me. He missed access. Every favor, every card, every call had always been about convenience, not care. A week after that, Lacey sent another text. Short this time. "He's mad you canceled it. Said you're punishing him. I told him it's your right. He didn't like that." I smiled when I read it. Not out of spite, just amusement. The man genuinely believed cutting him off financially was a moral crime. That night, I sat on my porch with the desert wind rolling through. The stars were bright, the air quiet. For once, my mind wasn't replaying old arguments or unfinished sentences. I just sat there watching the power lines stretch across the horizon like silver threads. The same kind of lines I used to climb for a living. There was something poetic about it, I guess. The same thing he mocked me for had become the very thing that gave me freedom. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to fix things. Broken conversations, old resentments, relationships that were never going to work. And for what? To keep the peace for people who didn't care if I had any left for myself. I leaned back in my chair, finished my drink, and muttered to no one, "Guess I finally learned what to stop fixing." I stopped fixing everything that wasn't my job, including him. But apparently, he still thought I was on call. It had been about 6 months since I'd canceled that card. I was in Los Angeles for a week-long training course for senior line workers, safety seminars, leadership stuff, all paid for by the company. I hadn't thought about my dad in months. I'd even stopped wondering what new act he was pulling online. The morning it happened, I was walking out of the hotel lobby, ID badge around my neck, scrolling through my schedule when I heard it. "Ryan." That voice could cut glass. I froze, turned, and there he was. My dad, standing across the street in khakis and a pressed shirt, holding a folder like he was about to file a complaint. I didn't move. He smiled like nothing had happened, like he hadn't spent the last year trying to wreck my name. "Can we talk?" he called out, crossing the street. "Let's talk like men." I should have walked away, but I didn't. Maybe curiosity, maybe closure. Either way, I stood there as he stopped a few feet in front of me, adjusting his glasses like he was about to deliver a TED Talk on fatherhood. "You look good," he said. "I saw your name listed as an attendee for this event. Didn't expect to find you here." I didn't answer, just waited. He sighed dramatically. "I don't know why you've made me the villain in your story. It was one joke, Ryan. You took it too seriously. You've always been too serious. There it was, the same script, same tone, same blame shift. I almost smiled at how predictable it was. You tracked me down to tell me I can't take a joke, I said. He frowned like he didn't expect me to sound calm. I tracked you down to make peace. You've humiliated me, embarrassed the family, and you act like I deserved it. I don't act like it, I said. You did. He shook his head, stepping closer. You've changed, son. You used to have respect. Now you talk to me like I'm a stranger. You are, I said flatly. And stop calling me son. You lost the right when you made me your punchline. That got to him. His face twitched, that same mix of confusion and anger he used to get when someone disagreed with him. He opened his folder, pulled out some printed screenshots, my guess, social media comments, maybe texts. This isn't who you are, he said, shaking the paper slightly. You're better than this resentment. I know you miss me. I laughed quietly. You know what's funny? You've been wrong about me my whole life. Might as well add that one to the list. He scowled. I miss my son, he said, the one who used to respect me. I took a sip of my coffee. You don't miss me, you miss control, and I don't owe you anything. He stared at me for a second, that calculating look like he was figuring out his next move. Then suddenly he stepped back, tripped on his own heel, and threw his arms out. Don't hit me, he shouted, way too loud. Please stop. I froze. People on the sidewalk turned immediately. A couple walking their dogs stopped. A guy pulling luggage looked over. Someone across the street started filming. What the hell are you talking about? I said, backing up a step, hands raised. He stumbled again, fake, clutching his shoulder. He's attacking me. Please stop. A woman near the curb gasped. Sir, you need to calm down. Someone else yelled, Hey man, what's wrong with you? He's an old man. My stomach dropped, not from fear but disgust. The man had actually rehearsed this. The folder hit the pavement, papers scattering like a movie scene. He was breathing heavy, performing like it was Broadway. Dad, I said slowly, voice low. You're embarrassing yourself. He shook his head dramatically, still loud enough for the crowd. You've always had a temper. Always. I heard someone nearby say, I got it on video, and my chest tightened, not because I was guilty, but because I knew how easily he could twist this. Then, like divine timing, a man burst out from a bakery across the street, apron still on, white flour all over his hands. Hey, he yelled. He didn't touch him. Everyone turned. I saw the whole thing, the baker said, jogging over. That old guy's faking it. The younger one hasn't laid a finger on him. He's been talking calm the whole time. The crowd went quiet. My dad froze mid-performance, still bent slightly like he couldn't decide whether to keep acting or drop it. The baker walked closer, pointing right at him. You ought to be ashamed trying to pull that in public. There are cameras everywhere, buddy. You just made a fool of yourself. A few people murmured. One woman who had been filming lowered her phone. My dad's face went pale. The act fell apart completely. He straightened his shirt, muttered something about being misunderstood, then glanced at me. I met his eyes. You just proved why I left. Then I turned and walked off toward the corner, the crowd parting silently. I didn't look back. I could feel his stare burning into the back of my head, but I didn't care. By the time I hit the end of the block, the tension had drained out of me. My hands were steady, heartbeat normal. I wasn't even angry, just done. Done with the lies, the theatrics, the constant manipulation. When I got back to the hotel, the front desk clerk gave me a nervous look. Everything okay out there? Yeah, I said. Just someone who doesn't know when to quit. I went up to my room, set my badge on the table, and stared out the window at the city lights. Cars moved below like little sparks, silent and distant. That was the last time I ever saw him. For months, there were no calls, no stunts, no performances, just silence. The kind he always claimed he wanted but never knew how to live with. A year later, that's exactly what he got. Was living outside Sedona by then. Small rental near the Red Cliffs, big sky, quiet mornings. My days were simple, work, gym. Sometimes help a neighbor fix a broken fence or light fixture, the kind of life that used to sound boring when I was younger, but now it felt like peace. Work had been steady. After that training in LA, I got promoted to lead a small crew for contract jobs. Good pay, solid guys, no politics. Most days ended with me grilling dinner on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the desert orange. I didn't think much about my dad anymore. He was a chapter I'd closed until he tried to write himself back in. It started with a text. Unknown number, same tone I'd know anywhere. Ryan, it's your father. I'd like to talk. Family's family. Life's too short to hold grudges. I stared at it, shaking my head. No apology, no accountability, just a recycled slogan. I didn't reply. 2 days later, another one came. You'll regret pushing family away one day. I didn't even block the number. I just muted it. Let him shout into the void. Then came the GoFundMe. Lacey texted me the link with no comment, just the link. The title read, "Helping a Father Recover from Estrangement and Health Issues." The description was worse. I'm a retired man struggling with heart problems and emotional distress after losing contact with my only son. I'm trying to keep my home and rebuild my life. He didn't mention the fake heart attack, the smear campaign, or that I'd offered him more chances to change than he ever deserved. The goal was $10,000. After 3 weeks, it had $85. The comments were quiet too. One from a cousin saying prayers. Another from someone named Old Accountant 77 saying, "Stay strong." That was it. Aaron didn't share it. That surprised me at first. Then Lacey called one afternoon. I picked up, half expecting more drama. "She's embarrassed," Lacey said. The whole stunt made her look stupid. People asked questions she couldn't answer. "Good," I said. "Maybe she'll finally stop trying to defend the indefensible." There was a pause. Lacey sighed softly. "He still talks about you, says you'll come around eventually." "He's been saying that my whole life," I said. "Doesn't make it true." I thanked her for letting me know, then got back to work. I didn't think about it much after that. It was just another performance of his, another way to get attention when the applause had stopped. Weeks passed. The fundraiser quietly disappeared. So did his new number. Aaron stopped posting about family dinners and forgiveness. Lacey kept in touch sometimes, mostly small things, weather updates, photos of her garden, normal stuff, no drama. My mom came by one weekend to visit. We made breakfast together, her cooking, my coffee. She looked around my place, the clean space, the repaired shelves, the calm routine. "You seem settled," she said, smiling. "I am," I told her. She nodded. "He's still trying to pull people back in. Don't take the bait." "I won't," I said. "He can talk all he wants. I'm done listening." That evening, after she left, I sat on the porch again, watching lightning flash over the hills. The air smelled like rain and dust. For the first time in years, I realized I didn't feel angry anymore. Not at him, not at the past, not at anything. He'd spent a lifetime trying to prove he was the smartest man in the room. Always had to have the last word, the upper hand, the spotlight. But the one thing he never figured out was that silence isn't weakness. It's control. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year, and for once that silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful, complete. He thought I'd always come crawling back. But I'm not that kid anymore. I've got peace, and he's got silence.